Hey guys, I am going to walk you through how to set up a 1 point perspective. So hopefully by now, you guys have discussed with Marta, your different type of perspective drawings. But if not, a quick rundown. Basically, you have 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point perspectives, and uh, the difference is basically how many vanishing points you have, right? So if I even were to pull up some examples here. So I have this example image for us, and basically, uh, what perspectives are how our eyes kind of perceive space, right? Um, and in reality, when you look at like a cube, for example, like we know that those lines in a cube are parallel, but our eyes, our vision doesn't always perceive them that way. And that's so like perspective drawings are representations of how we view the objects around us. So like for example, with a 1 point perspective, you have one vanishing point, right? So you'll see that like these like the top and bottom lines right here are parallel, and then your up and down axes lines are parallel as well, because the only vanishing point is these back lines. If you look, I want to like use my hands and like this motion. If you look here, let me unshare my screen for a second so you can see. Um, when your lines are parallel, I look I look really silly doing this, but when your lines are parallel, right? Um, they're never gonna they infinitely they'll never cross each other. But in that last set of lines, they start off when you're looking at them, they're not quite parallel, but they look pretty close, but infinitely off into space. Eventually, they will reach this like point where they would intersect, right? So that is what you're seeing with this example, right? These lines going back into the distance are not parallel to each other, while your front, like X and Y axes are. With 2 point perspective, um, basically our vertical axis is holding this this like linear parallel thing where all of our up and down lines are going to be parallel with each other, but it is actually our other axes that are not parallel, right? There's two vanishing points off in the distance. And so with 3 point perspective, nothing is parallel. And you can see like the sides of the cube, which would be parallel over here and over here. Even the sides are no longer parallel. And because then there's this third vanishing point that would be kind of up in the sky, right? So I'm uploading this image to Carmen as well for your own reference. This was helpful to me when I was in school. Um, it's kind of it can be tricky if you haven't been exposed to it before, but um, basically we're going to be working with this 1 point perspective over here, right? So that being said, when we're in Rhino, a lot of times people are modeling in like isometric view or something, which, oh, hey, that's actually a pretty cool isometric drawing. I like this a lot. But we want to switch, go to set view and go to, don't hit 2 point perspective, hit just regular perspective, right? And so you might be thinking to yourself already, man, none of this stuff is parallel anyways, because we've already created some weird amalgamation of shapes and things are sheared, and um, basically the perspective will just kind of add to that. But what we want to do is try and find a compelling, preferably interior perspective, but exterior perspectives will be allowed as well. We want you to find the best. Everyone's geometries are going to be so different. Like it might be better to have, an exterior perspective versus an interior, depending on what your final form ends up being. But basically, how do we set up a 1 point perspective in this view, which is like normally our like default 3 point perspective? So what we want to do is we have wonderful, wonderful camera manipulation in Rhino that we often don't use. And so I want to show you how to use it. Um, First, what we want to start with is if you this point button right here, single point, just basically you drop this on your ground plane and then you raise it up. I, I'm like 5'9", so I set mine at like 5 foot, uh, 5'9" I have 5.75 feet because this model is in feet. And obviously, like I know there's some different scales happening with these. Some will get big or small, but we want to get like eye level ish to like what a person would be. So like this model is still scale, like the stairs are still like human scale in this instance. But so this is like uh, almost 6 feet. A lot of people just like go for 6 foot as a default. Um, but you just like raise up a point about 6-ish feet off the ground or off your second floor ground plane if you're on your second floor. Um, and so like this is what that looks like here. So like this is like kind of like been shifted down and lower and um basically we want to just kind of find a spot and then a view that could be helpful to like really express what this geometry is. So this will be a lot of experimenting on your guys' part, but just for the sake of showing you how to do it, basically it's like, okay, this looks kind of interesting in here. Put my point back down. Yeah, I thought it was looking a little high up there. I must have hit it a second time. So got my point. You basically this point that's floating in space is going to be your camera. And then this other point, you're going to drop another one, place it on any edge or surface or wherever you want your camera to look, right? So if I were to place it like right here, what I could then do is hit this drop down, set camera, place camera and target. Click this, camera location, click point number 1, target location, click point number 2. Then what I can do is go down to set camera again, and there is a show camera button right here. It's also F6. And so what this does is don't rotate. You can't orbit. You can't rotate in this view. Click out of this view. And when you go into like your top down view, for example, because we've hit show camera, do you see this cone that has appeared right here? I'll go ahead and hide some of these. This cone, it's kind of hidden at the moment, but I can just get a hold of this. Whoa. So that is, I wonder if I can isolate this. I'm just gonna start hiding my pieces until it's visible. So just in this view. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is the camera, right? And so if you grab the midpoint, you can move the whole thing. And so it might actually be helpful to get into just like 2 windows of this. I'm gonna pull this back for a minute, hit show, all my stuff's gonna pop back up. And so basically what you can start to do is like, as you move this camera, the middle point, I wonder if it's better to move this in the right view, perhaps, so I can kind of grab it. You just don't want to mess with it in this view over here. I could just actually make this one. I'm going to do like an ISO view. There we go. That's much better. So we can grab, that's our regular point that we placed, and we can honestly get rid of that. That was the regular point. I'm so sorry. This is our camera. So this moves the camera in and out without changing any of the properties, right? See how I'm like dragging by the blue arrow. Now you can really start to screw around with the focal length of the camera by grabbing just the back point or just the front point and adjusting this. And so this changes like the field of vision. Like, so this is kind of sick for as like an exterior view, right? And then like the, selecting the points is a little finicky, and then this like locks the perspective. And then you, if you grab like these other points, for example, you can like, the midpoint is like a rotation that can occur. This over here is like your focal depth. And so all of these numbers you're seeing change on the right hand properties. And so really what's happening here is these are kind of like, these are the camera properties are explained in the way that like an analog photographer would understand them. So if any of you guys have ever shot like, you know, an analog camera with like a lens, you've probably heard all this before, but for those of us who are not expert photographers, basically what is happening is that there is a ratio of basically the lens, which is, you know, the piece of glass at the end of the camera, and the actual piece inside. I forget what it's called off the top of my head. And like, but when you zoom in, you know how like a camera lens gets longer. Like a literal camera extends in size as you're like zooming in. Um, that distance between your like view plane in the camera and the lens at the end of the camera changes, and so that affects the image that you're getting. Um, and obviously, there's like a ton of science that goes into that that I am not going to explain because I don't really know it myself. But basically, all that can be summed up with this wonderful, wonderful lens length number. So, right, when you click into this, basically what you need to know is that uh, like 20 or like 0 to 25 is like a fisheye view, right? Where everything like super wide angle. 35 to 70 is considered like normal. And then anything higher than like 75 is generally like a zoomed in view, right? So I'm kind of at the top end of the normal length, but if I were like, if I drop this to like 20, see how this becomes like a super fisheye, like blown out. I didn't move the camera back, and you can see how that affected the camera here. Like if I double this to 40, my cone of vision shrinks. I'm cutting off, um, you know, the stuff up here, and you can see that literally the cone cutting through here. But basically, as long as you don't screw with this, like orbiting around, you just have to reset your a point and a target to get this like parallel plane. These would all be functionally 1 point perspectives. And so you can you're gonna set like three of these and then like narrow them down, but like find cool views of your geometry. And from there we're gonna work with these views to make, eventually like collages and renderings. And um yeah, I really want you guys to like play around with the focal length. Um and just don't be afraid to try something different. Like uh I obviously just like screwed something up. I just hit a button that looks like irreparably damaged my view, which is a little annoying. And that's my final part of this lesson is always, always go to named views and save your view, right? Because look what I did. I messed it up, and now I put it in parallel somehow. I bumped a button on my keyboard. Um, and obviously, like you see, I'm like orbiting around. This can be fixed with my, placing a point again. But you guys remember how to save views? Yeah, you just got to remember how to save your views, right? You hit your drop down, or you could do it in your view tab. Go to set view, click on your named views, and that'll pull up this option over here. And you always gotta always name your stuff, right? Perspective one, perspective two, or idea one, two, three. Name them whatever you want. But I lost that view I had because I had not done that. And so I was actually about to tell you guys to do that anyway. So a fitting end to this part of the project. But you guys are doing great. I'm loving what I'm seeing. And keep up the great work. I will catch up with you guys soon.